Good evening and welcome to the webinar this evening. My name is Michael Rutherford. I'm calling in from San Diego, California. Glad to have everybody calling in tonight from around the world and certainly from all over the United States. We've got a really great bit of information that we're going to dive into here very shortly. I just have the distinct pleasure of hosting tonight. You know, it's interesting, the world's changing right in front of us, and for those of you that have been plugging into some of the gamification and application conferences that we've been doing over the last few months and tapping into these weekly calls leading up to this event in Dallas in April called Playbook 2.0, you're going to notice a theme about games and about gamification and about how the world has become a game, and people that learn how to gamify their businesses will learn how to really win at this game called life. So we've got a great person that's going to dive in tonight, an individual that for the last 20 years has really worked in technology and worked in transformation, primarily using technology to change the way that people do business. And this conversation tonight about games and about gamification, put your seatbelt on, grab a piece of paper and a pen. You're going to love it. I'd love to welcome to the first part of the call, Mr. Jim Bunch. Jim, you with us?
Yes, Michael. Thank you so much. It's great to connect with everybody. And as Michael said, hold on to your hats, because this is one of our educational webinars where we hope to maybe open your eyes to some new ideas, new concepts, and maybe you'll get a chance to come join us in a city and see some of our technology firsthand. So tonight we're going to be talking about how to gamify everything and why gamification is going to be what we see as one of the single largest trends of the next decade. But more importantly, how do we get in front of these trends? So a lot of people are like, well, why would we gamify anything? I don't play games. I don't have time for games. Well, my hopes are by the end of this presentation, you actually look at things a little bit differently, because what is happening now is a major shift in the world. And if you think about business over the last 20 to 50 years, what we were doing through the Industrial Revolution is we were really systemizing things. We were operationalizing things. We were scaling things. But there's been a shift in business. And what you're noticing now is it's more about the experience that people are having, whether that's the experience as a client or the experience that you're having inside of your business or in building your business. So our hopes are that you can see how to build a bridge between where you are in your life and in your business and where things are headed. And our mission here is to help you inspire fun and drive change. So the other thing that we want to do tonight is to open your eyes to this gamification layer that's actually already been put on top of the world, and to help you see how you, me, and a lot of the things we do on a day-to-day business, level in our businesses has actually already been gamified. So as Michael said, I've had a unique opportunity to be in the right place at the right time with a couple different businesses, most of which in the technology industry and also in transformation. And we've built some companies, we've kept some companies, we've taken some public, and this last one is actually a passion project of mine, the Ultimate Game of Life, where I really started to look at gamification at a whole new level. So before we dive into any of that, I want to explain a theory, and some of you may see yourself inside of this theory. There is a concept that's passed around the world of games called Bartle's theory. And what Bartle discovered is that there's really 4 types of people that play games. Now, you and I probably have multiple of these categories, but what he found was there are 4 different types. The first type of person who plays a game is what we call a socializer. And as the name would suggest, a socializer actually joins a game because they want to connect with other people. Their primary reason that they're playing it, any game, is because most of the time they're heart-driven. They want to interact with other players, and on some occasions, these interactions lead to longer-term relationships. Okay, but their primary purpose in playing the game is to meet others. Now, maybe you know somebody who's like this. They have a high extroversion. They're the person that goes to the parties just because there may be somebody there that they don't know yet, right? These are the people that are oftentimes find themselves in jobs where they have to be around a lot of people. It might be sales or marketing or anything like that. So these players love the interaction. The second category of players is someone called explorers. And when we talk about explorers in the world of gamification, they're often called spades. And what that means is they have a tendency to dig around. They have a tendency to want to discover areas or create maps or learn about hidden places, right? And oftentimes they feel restricted when a game expects them to move in a certain area within a certain time without allowing them to look around at their own pace. So think about this. Who do you know that enjoys Easter eggs, right? Who do you know that is the person who's always trying to find the glitch in something? These people are what we call explorers. And their reason that they play the game is they want to interact, but they want to interact with levels that they may not have discovered yet. The next category is our achievers. And your achievers are oftentimes in the gaming world called diamonds. These are people who prefer to gain points, levels. They want to gather equipment or some kind of concrete measurement that they're having success in the game. Now, of course, if we're talking about games for fun and entertainment, that's one thing, but we also probably know people in real life who are gaining access to certain status. It could be a home, a car, or some type of title, right? And these types of people, the achievers, typically will go to great lengths to achieve rewards simply for the prestige of having it. Okay? So when you think about these three, these are the ones that actually make up the majority of games. And people who design games understand this, and they make their games to have the majority of it for socializers, explorers, and achievers. The final category here are called killers. And killers in the game world are actually a breed of achievers. But the killers are the ones that are also called the clubbers. They thrive on competition, much like the achievers. They're prepared to fight, but oftentimes the killer's intent, whether it's a single-player game or a multiplayer game, is to actually prevent others from winning. Now, that could be other players, but it could also be the people who are designing the game. So the killers go into the game to find the holes, the loopholes, and to see if they can't bring the game down or bring the other players down. They're the ones who will actually spend time and money and energy just to try to dethrone somebody else. They're not oftentimes looking for the recognition from it. They actually just get off on taking somebody else down. Okay? So I wanted to give you a little bit of Bartle theory so that you can start to understand how not only entertainment games are being designed, but as you'll see pretty soon, how games of business and games of life are actually being designed. So one of the trends that we see nowadays is apps for everything. And if you've been on any of our other webinars, you've noticed that we've taken you into the app world, in other words, the mobile world. If you haven't been on one of our other webinars and this is your first time, ask yourself this question. How many of you know someone who has had an idea for an app or somebody who has shared an app with somebody else? It's the latest buzz. It's the latest trend. So the second thing that we're noticing through business and life is gamifying everything. And the third trend that we're going to touch lightly on tonight is the power being in your hands. In other words, there's major shifts that have happened on our planet that is putting the content creation, that is putting the user's experience back into our hands, which is making it way more interactive than we've ever had as a species before. It used to be that we just consumed content. Now we create content, we share content, we critique content. I mean, if you look at something like Wikipedia, the whole thing was built on the concept of lots of people using a platform to create content. Well, the same thing is happening with apps, and it's happening with games, where people are not only the ones playing the games and consuming the games, they're actually involved in creating the experience in the games because we're creating social games. So in this first trend called Appify Everything, and again, I'm only going to touch on this tonight because we have other webinars that will take you deeper just into the app world. But if you'll notice something from the company called Flurry, you'll notice in this the number of apps by category, and they've broken into things like business and health and news, navigation, productivity, sports, music, reference, lifestyle, travel, education, utilities, entertainment, books, and then, of course, games. 19% of all of the apps in the App Store, which has reached over 1 billion apps, are games. Here's another shocking statistic. 80% of the downloads to people's smartphones are games. So 19% of the apps in the store are games. 80% of the downloads that go onto people's phone are games. So we know that this is not just a trend, this is actually what the consumers are saying, hey, this is what we're most interested in. Now, along that lines with Appify Everything is we're seeing apps for health, right? So you see this app here where you wear a device that communicates back how many miles you've jogged. It'll also tell you your sleep patterns. It'll track your food activity, and it'll socially share that with other people. You know, you may have seen this one. You may have seen Nike's. Mobile medical is on the rise right now with apps that will actually give our biofeedback and our medical feedback back to our doctors if we give them permission to view it. So why would I ever go to the hospital, or why would I go into my doctor and have him take, my vital stats for 15 minutes when he could simply look at my app integration and see it for the last 90 days? We're seeing apps in the area of wealth. We're seeing apps in the area of, for example, things like mint.com or QuickBooks, where you can look at real time at your finances, your incomes and your expenses. We're seeing apps that are for happiness, which are not only games, but apps around raising our awareness, or meditation apps, or just apps that are fun, right? So we're seeing that these apps are coming in, but now we're also seeing the integration of apps with gamification. And the moment you create a leaderboard, the moment you make them social, the moment you publish an opportunity to earn a badge or a level, what you're actually doing is you're activating those 4 quadrants of the socializers, explorers, achievers, and killers. So ask yourself, what is it that actually motivates you, not only in the game world, but how could this be used to motivate us in the real world, in life? And one of my favorite quotes is by Mickey Mantle. He says, "It's unbelievable how much you don't know about the game you've all been playing all your life," right? Which is the game of life. Now, of course, he was talking about baseball, but in reality, the truth is every piece of our life has been gamified. Now, when we're kids, we start with things like neighborhood games, like maybe you played tag or hide and seek or kick the can. But eventually those neighborhood games ended up becoming things like board games, and they ended up on our kitchen table with Monopoly and Scrabble and the game of life. And eventually they went from the kitchen table over to our TVs, to the arcades. And we started seeing arcade games where you used to put a quarter or 50 cents into these games and play pinball or Pac-Man or Space Invaders. And eventually those big video games ended up becoming console games, and they crept back into our homes like Atari and Nintendo and Xbox. And then maybe you remember they went from console games to social games, where online you'd play games like World of Warcraft or Farmville, right? And now these games have not only been in the neighborhood, not been on the kitchen table and in the arcades and in the consoles and on our computers. These games have made their way into the palms of our hands with mobile games like Mafia War and Tap Resorts and Words with Friends, right? So these are the traditional games that people play for fun and for entertainment. But now those games are actually crossing over into real life. There are companies like Foursquare and Mogul and MyStand and The Ultimate Game who've created rewards and loyalty programs to incentivize us in the real world to play their games. Now, the way that I was exposed to this, and the reason I got really interested in this, was I was having some friends over for dinner, and these were actually acquaintances at the time. I hadn't met them before, but we had this couple by the name of Rick and Rona Thompson come over, along with another couple and one of my business partners and my wife and I. I remember this because my son was about 2 years old at the time, and we're having wine and we're chatting, and everybody's kind of getting to know each other, and eventually we were going around the table sharing, well, what are you up to and what are you involved in? And this amazing couple, Rick and Rona Thompson, said that they were building a company called Playbook. And at the time, the company was about a year old. And I said, well, what is Playbook? And they said, well, we create social games. And I said, what kind of games? He goes, well, for example, have you ever heard of the game Mobsters? And I said, no, not familiar with it. And they said, well, basically what happens is that people sign up and they get an avatar. And part of what they do in this game is they have to invite their friends. In other words, they build a network. And they invite their friends to build up the size of their mob. The bigger their mob gets, the more power they have in the game. And I go, okay, network science, that makes sense. I go, what else do they do? They say, well, once they start building up their mob, then what they need to do is acquire currency, and they need to acquire equipment. And I go, oh, what kind of stuff? And they say, well, they get coins, and they buy things like guns and knives and tanks. And I go, okay, why do they do that? And they say, well, there's a mob, and they're taking over the city. So they knock over newspaper stands and grocery stores, and maybe they even knock up an old lady. And I'm like, what? I've got a 2-year-old here. What are you talking about? And they said, hey, it's just a game, right? Well, I go, okay, I'm interested. Tell me, how many players, quote unquote, do you have on your game? You've been doing this about a year. And Rick says, well, on our way to dinner, we checked in. Currently, we have 19 million active players. And it got silent. And I went, excuse me? They have 19 million active players in 1 year? And Rona goes, yeah, and if you asked us at dinner tomorrow, we would have 20 million active players. Now, I don't know how many of you are on this webinar or listening, but if you've ever tried to get 1,000 people into your business, or 10,000 people, or 100,000 people, or even 500,000 people, it takes a lot of energy and effort. But what they had figured out is that if you can give people a fun experience, if you can get them to socially share and collaborate and compete, if you can give them an opportunity to earn rewards and prizes, you can create an amazing audience. So I scratched my head and I went, wow, this is pretty incredible. And I said, if you don't mind, I'm somewhat of a business person. How do you make money at this? And they said to me, well, Rona did. She goes, well, somebody might want to upgrade their avatar by buying new clothes or buying new swords, or maybe they want to upgrade their hair to something like Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie's hair. And I said, what does that cost? I said, oh, it might be 99 cents. It might be a couple of bucks. Maybe they want to buy more artillery, and it gets a little bit more and a little bit more, and they buy these credits for it. And I said, well, do you mind if I ask? You've got 19 million players. Mind if I ask what kind of revenues you're doing? And they said, sure, no worries. Right now, we're doing about $30 million, and this should actually be a year, not per month, $30 million per year in revenue. And I thought to myself, gulp. I need to learn about this. So I actually went downstairs. I had 3 offices at the time. I went downstairs, pulled up Plato, did a little research on who these people were that I was having dinner with, and I got incredibly interested in gaming. But what was interesting is at that time, my window popped open on my Skype, and one of my friends from the East Coast, by the name of Randy Zales, said, hey, what are you up to? And I said, I'm having dinner with Rick and Rona Thompson of Playdom. And he said, Playdom like mobsters? And I go, yeah. And he goes, no way. He goes, I just pulled out my American Express Black card and spent $500 to take out this other mobster. And I type back, I go, you did what? He goes, I spent $500 to take him out. I didn't want to have to earn my way up to the top. I bought my way to the top and wiped this guy out. So I said, thank you. You just paid for our wine. Have a great night. We'll talk later. I went back upstairs, and that led me down a journey. This was about 5 years ago. That led me down a journey to discover more about how gamification, not just in video games, but in other areas, is actually infiltrating the rest of our life. And I ran across this gal by the name of Jane McGonigal. If you look her up on head.com, which are great videos, in her 18-minute presentation, she talks about how people are opting out of real life. They're opting out of reality, and they're investing. Millions and millions of people are investing an average of 13 hours a week. I mean, there's 183 million active gamers in the U.S., right? 105 million in India. Take a look at China, 200 million active gamers. Now imagine if you had a tribe or a workforce of hundreds of millions of people that just invested in your business for 13 hours a week. Well, what I also found interesting is these gamers have figured out human psychology at a level that most psychologists haven't figured out. If you look at this picture on the left, this is a picture of a young boy who is being photographed while playing games. The expression on his face, the angle of his eyes, the curvature in his mouth, everything in there shows that this young man just had what's called an epic experience. In other words, he just unlocked or overcame something in the game that was so surprising, so epic, that he didn't even know how to respond to it. Look at the surprise and the excitement in this guy's face. Well, these gamers have figured out how to release epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine, all the chemicals that are fired off in our brain that can make us feel excitement, they can make us feel fear, they can make us feel elation, they can make us feel frustration. They have figured out how to literally wire us for gaming experiences. So think about this for a minute. Not only can you build a large audience, not only are there revenue opportunities, now you can actually influence someone's psychological and emotional experience in real time. So some of you may have heard of some of these companies like Zynga, who was founded in 2007, became the largest gaming company in the world, has over 250 million active users, and at one time was valued at $7 billion. I know there's some bad press going around about where they're at right now, but the truth is I wouldn't be surprised if you see these guys back on top pretty soon. So you see these kind of things popping up. And when you start to put it together with some other facts that I heard from Jay McGonigal, that so far we as a society, in other words, the gamers in this one game called World of Warcraft, have invested over 5.93 million years playing that one game. And according to Jay McGonigal, that's not enough. She said the typical gamer plays for about an hour a day. There's 6 million in China who actually spend 22 hours a week on games. More than 10 million hardcore gamers in UK, France, Germany, and spend 20 hours a week playing games. 5 million extreme gamers in the US play for 45 hours a week. And currently, we as a culture of gamers are playing 3 billion hours a week. And she says it's not enough. At her Institute for the Future, she says that we actually need to be playing 21 billion hours a week, but not just of games for entertainment. We need to be playing games that help us with our financial challenges we're having in the world, help us with our environmental challenges, help us restructure the way that we're doing politics, help us design games that actually create a whole new way to do life. And she has committed her time to helping create the right games to not only heal people, but to change the way that we do life. So now that we take a look at some of these facts, let's dive into, well, what is gamification? Maybe you've heard this term, maybe you haven't. To make it simple, what gamification is the art of behavior mechanics and incentivization. Okay, it's not just playing games like Farmville. It's actually how do we get people to behave, and incentivization is how do we make it fun? So what if going to your job or building your company or just doing life was as fun as a game? Well, would you be interested? I think I would. And the reason why is that gamification is all about increasing engagement, growing revenue, and driving lifetime user value. Remember I said before the industrial environment that we used to be in as business was really about creating structure and systems and operationalizing things. Now what you're seeing is everybody's making things more towards our happiness and towards our health. It's all about having more fun and engaging more of our community, right? Getting us to have more conversations so that we can actually create more conversions. This is what gamification is all about. And this is just getting started because up until recently, the only way to play these games was through the web or in arcades or through our TV. Well, now that it's gone to mobile and there's actually over 400 million global smartphones, with 80% of the app downloads being games, we can see that the trend for gamification infiltrating all areas of our lives has gone through the roof. Now, I know some of you are scratching your head and saying, all right, where's the business behind this? Well, if you've ever done any lead generation in your business, right? If you've ever had to pay for a cost per click, or you had to drive audience to your website so that you can convert them into your products or services, these guys do the same thing. The average lead cost per download in 2011 was $1.85. The average lead cost for our business on the web is about $6. When you start recognizing that these app downloads and these games are getting these billion-dollar valuations because of the audience they're driving, you can begin to see that some of the trends that are happening aren't just fads, they're actually a whole new way to do life, and there's quite an economic rationalization as to why these are here. For example, the mobile gaming industry alone is expected to reach $54 billion You know, I heard a story not long ago about last Christmas. Actually, I heard it a while ago. It was at Christmas time, that someone had actually knocked over, meaning held up, one of the trucks with the new delivery of one of the most popular games. I don't remember if it was Halo or which game it was, but they actually held them up at gunpoint, stole their all of their games, and sold them out on the black market. Now, I obviously don't condone any of that kind of behavior, but I want to point out to you that if you're unfamiliar with the world of gamification, and I'm talking about the enterprise gamification, it has actually penetrated all of our lives already. And you may be saying to yourself, no way, how is this? Well, think back to the day, and some of you may not be old enough, some of you may remember this. One of the original gamifications was shopping. Do you remember S&H green stamps, where you would collect these stamps that had some random value assigned to them, and then you'd have a catalog, and that catalog will allow you to get prizes? That's actually gamification in the old school. How do they do it in the new school? Well, you see apps like Shopkick, where you go into Macy's, or they push an ad to Best Buy or Macy's or Sports Authority or the local grocery store. And what do? Just by walking in there, you collect kickbucks, right? And the more the kickbucks that you get, the more bonuses you get, and the more rewards you get. So they're driving what? They're driving behavior by incentivizing us. And they're making it social by telling our friends about it to give us more points. Here's another way that you may have been gamified. How many of you, be honest, how many of you will choose one airline over another because of the points that you're getting? Well, loyalty is part of gamification. Points and free trips is part of gamification. So many of us have been gamified and didn't even recognize it. Well, this is now moving into other areas like education. You know, Khan Academy has found a way to make learning fun for people. They give real-time stats on your achievements. They give badges. There's social feeds. The whole thing is built as a game. You see, learning doesn't have to be boring anymore. It can actually be fun. And here's the crazy thing. Kids demand it nowadays. As a matter of fact, there are programs like this Youth App Lab where students come in after school and they build Android apps and they earn badges for doing it. These kids love it, and they're creating the economy of the future. As I already mentioned, some of you guys may be aware of this, of some of the things like the Nike Fit app and the Jawbone app, right? The question is, when you start seeing these apps pop up, which ones are going to win, right? How do you decide, well, what do I go with, Nike or do I go with Jawbone? The simple reality is this. If the games can help build a community, if the games can speak to the 4 types of players that we already mentioned, in other words, maybe they challenge you, maybe they have areas that you've never explored before, maybe they'll connect you socially to people that you never knew, or maybe you're the killer, you're the one who says, you know what, not only do I want to win, I want to make sure nobody else wins and everybody knows it, right? These are all behaviors that are being driven, and they're infiltrating every part of our lives and our businesses. So the summary here is there are 4 traits of a good game. Number 1, it's got to have some kind of a goal. It's got to provide a sense of purpose, which is what a goal does. So most of these games have some type of goal. It might be to reach another level. It might be to acquire a reward or a good, or it might just be simply that there's status or something for you to discover. But that's a goal. That gives players a sense of purpose. It's got to have some kind of rules. Now, rules aren't to prevent people from things in game world. What rules do is they unleash creativity. They foster strategic thinking. So, for example, in our live events, we do gamified experiences. And the reason is we put certain rules in place to get people to think differently, to get them to break outside of their normal way of being and get them to change the way they show up in the game of life or in business. The third piece is a feedback system. Right? Your games have to have some kind of a way for the player to know where are they in their own journey or in comparison to other people. And then the fourth one is voluntary participation. In other words, you can't force people to have fun. It's something that you have to attract them to. Whereas in the old day of business, you could threaten people and say, hey, if you don't do this, you're not going to get this. Games are actually designed differently. It's all based on authenticity. It's all based on pulling people into the experience instead of pushing them. And a good example of this is a friend of ours in one of our advisors, John Carter, who came up with the idea to gamify the restaurant industry. And his idea was really simple. He says, what if I could help people go to the restaurants they love more often? How would I do that? Well, I get them to download my mobile app. I get them to swipe their credit card in the app or install their, put their credit card number into the app of the one that they would normally use when they go out to dinner. Or in my case, I put all of my credit cards in their business and personal. Whenever I eat at these restaurants that are mobile restaurants, I then, when I check out, like I normally would, I get the bill, I put my credit card in there. Because my credit card is attached to the game, it automatically gives me a discount on my meal. I don't have to pull out a loyalty card. I don't have to let anybody know. It's just automatically giving me a discount. So there's a reward in it for putting my credit card into the app, and I don't have to do anything for that. But in addition to that, he's created two other game features. Every dollar that I spend actually then puts me into a prize pool or a jackpot where I could win more money at the end of the month if I'm the mogul of the month at that restaurant. So one of my favorite sushi restaurants down here, last month I was the mogul at that, and I won a reward of $25 just for going in and having sushi. Now, in addition to that, if any of my friends end up getting the app because of me from my referral code, I also get a reward, and so do they. So I'm pointing this out because something that you and I already do, which is eat at restaurants, he has gamified, and he's made it mobile, and he's made it just a part of the experience. But here's the interesting part. We were asking John, we said, well, how do you get your clients? How much does it cost you? Because there's a cost of acquisition of most clients. And he said, when I first started, I was paying $47 per app install. In other words, if somebody would install the app, put their credit card in, I was willing to pay $47 because I know I get my return on investment. He goes, right now we're paying about $9 per install. The point that I want to make with this is most of people think that games go viral, that videos just go viral. The reality is most of them don't. Most of them require somewhere between $250,000 to $1 million in advertising on app networks just to get these games to get momentum. And then once they get momentum, then they go viral because enough people are talking about it and sharing it. So I point this out because those of you who might be joining us at the Playbook event or joining us on some of our other webinars, you may have heard us talk about a new platform that will allow you to actually be incentivized for sharing apps. And so I just want to plant that seed to keep your ears open for that kind of conversation. We won't go into that on tonight's call because this is mostly an education call. But keep in mind that there is an incentive, and what if instead of mogul paying the advertisers that money, that actually went back to the people who are actually sharing the apps, people like you or me or anybody like that. Okay? Now, that's one example of a game. Another one is a good friend of mine and another one of our associates, Jonathan Budd, who has created something called My Stand. My Stand is still in development, but imagine going to Starbucks, and just by walking into Starbucks, there's a geotag that knows that you're in Starbucks. It says, hey, you want to be an organic hero? You get 2 points for walking into Whole Foods, right? And you get another 2 points instead of, using a paper cup, you get another 2 points because you brought your own cup. And if you add up enough points at the end of the month, we're going to give you a free whatever at some other place. You see, the idea here is limitless. You can literally gamify anything. One last example here is actually a company that I founded a few years back called the Ultimate Game of Life. And what we realized is a lot of people want to change their life. Well, unfortunately, there wasn't any way for us to track that. However, now we've gamified coaching. We've had over actually 12,000 players now in 40 countries, set 3 goals, one in happiness, one in health, and one in wealth, and take 3 actions a day. We give them a scorecard, we give them accountability partners, and we do weekly webinars that engage them. So you can see how by creating the transformation of your life as a game, giving prizes and awards, getting people to take action and report those actions has had huge success. Now, the industry average of people who go to seminars, get excited, pumped up, but don't actually follow through in their goals is a 4% success rate. Right now, we at the Ultimate Game are tracking a 78% success rate of people setting and achieving their goals. Okay? So I bring this up because the power of gamification to transform our lives is huge. But now there's another shift that's happening. The power is being put back into your hands. The power to transform your life, the power to transform your business is being given back to us. In other words, the power is going to the people. No longer is it a select handful of few that create the content and decide what we get to consume. No longer is it a select few people who decide what TV shows we watch or don't. No longer is it a select few people who decide that you can build a business but you can't. You see, now the world currency has changed. And what's great about this is, for probably the first time in history, because of the amount of mobile phones that are across the planet, over half the planet having access to mobile phones, you and I can actually, in the palm of our hands, create one of the most amazing life in business experiences ever. And to make it even more fun, as I mentioned, we have all kinds of analytics in the gaming world that tell us when our people are engaged, when are they not engaged, when's the best time to get them engaged. So I hope that this has given you a little peek into the world of gamification. And I want to start to end here with the conclusion of the story that I started earlier about Rick and Rona Thompson. You see, that little gaming company that they built over the course of about 3 years, from start to the time when they sold it, ended up accumulating about 42 million active players per month. They have over 8 brands that sit on top of their gaming platform that engage millions and millions of people, that have generated quite a bit of revenue. And the crazy thing is, I actually got a phone call from another friend of mine who worked at Disney, and they have sold their company, Playdom, to Disney for $560 million. Now, keep in mind, it did take them 3 years to build from scratch. They sold it for $560 million with a $200 million kicker. So $760 million valuation. And if you think that games are just for fun, you might want to take a look at the gaming world and recognize that games are changing every industry out there. The question is your industry next? Can you create a game? Can you create an environment with unique experiences? Can you create rewards, badges, points, credits to track your KPIs, your key performance indicators? How can you incentivize your customers? How can you incentivize your team? How can you incentivize your family to create a whole new experience? My goal tonight was to connect with you and also hopefully get you to start to ask yourself, how can you make everything we do more fun? You know, whatever games you decide to play in 2013, whether you're playing the game of business or just playing the game of life, I hope that this has inspired you to play a bigger game. I hope that this has maybe gotten you to think about what else you could do to create a little more fun and experience in your life. But what I also hope is that you recognize that currently there are 7 billion players in the world that are ready to play and win the game of life. And never before in history have we had such a unique opportunity to actually connect as a community to be able to do some of the most amazing things that we have coming down the pipe in the next few years. Who knows? Maybe you and I will be a part of changing the way that governments communicate. Maybe we'll be a part of creating a game that changes the face of business forever. Maybe we'll be a part of a game that allows children who are coming up through the school systems now to have fun in school and to find their passion at a young age and build a successful business around that. You see, I believe that you and I have the opportunity like never before to create something amazing. And I want to introduce you to one of my good friends and the CEO of a company that we're building that many of you may have seen behind the curtains on, a gentleman who actually opened my eyes to the power of mobile. And I had been dabbling in it before with another company, but this gentleman has had numerous successes in business, definitely in the mobile space and in the entertainment space. And when he shared this story with me, it really opened my eyes. This gentleman's name is Brian Underwood. Brian is the CEO of a company that's being rolled out pretty soon that I'm fortunate to be partnered with him on and to help collaborate with and to create what we feel is going to be an amazing, amazing experience. But Brian shared the story, and he said, I was walking through New York City in Times Square, And if you remember, Times Square is the place where they have all of the big screen, billboards up, right? These $1 million ads. And Brian had this profound realization. He said, most of the time when people are walking down that street, they're looking up at these electronic billboards. They're looking at the advertisements of these people that are spending millions of dollars. He says, but the last time that I was there, and this is a few years ago, the last time I was there, I noticed nobody was looking up. Everybody had their heads down and their palms up. What were they looking at? They were looking at their mobile phones. You see, our focus as a culture has shifted. Our focus is no longer on those advertisers in the sky. Our focus is on what's happening in our world, what's happening in the palm of our hand. You see, that is where everything is headed. And so without any further ado, if you guys are open to it, I'm sure you are, I'd love for Brian to come on and to share in closing some of his thoughts, ideas, and then introduce you to an event that we have coming up to take you behind the scenes and show you some technology. So Brian, are you on?
I am here. Can you hear me okay, Jim?
I can. Thanks for hopping on.
Well, no, it's great to be online with everyone, and an excellent job of really giving a high-level education of some of the strategies that some of the biggest companies in the world are using right now to, impact the market, and I think more importantly, engage with their consumers on a personal level. And so definitely I was taking notes and got a lot of distinctions. And, every time I hear a presentation and people talk about gaming or gamification, I learned something new. And the one thing that I realized is that everything that you just went over is common sense, isn't it? The reality of it is, I think that most of us, though, can relate that common sense just isn't that common anymore. And I think what we're so excited about is giving everyone the ability or the awareness to see what's taking place in this world of business. And, one of the things that I took from that slide deck, Jim, that, Playdom had their tagline is where players rule. And, the reality of it is every single person on this telephone line on this presentation, I know we have people calling in from all across the world, is that we've been players in this movement that's taking place for the last decade. And what I mean by movement, I mean really the entire market shifting because of technology. When I say players that rule, I think of every single person that's on this telephone line and, really every one of the friends or business associates I know, because we've been playing in this game of connecting people around the world because of these social platforms and these social graphs that have been given to us. And what it's really enabling us to do is connect, communicate, engage, and drive behavior quicker and easier than ever before. But I want to ask everyone a question. My question to you is, wouldn't you like to have the transparency of knowing what your score is in this game of life, in this game that we've been playing for the last 8 years? Is we've been playing a game of driving the biggest phenomenons in business. We've been driving the success of the phenomenons like Facebook, the business phenomenons like Voxer or Instagram or Angry Birds. And, we decided to say, what, that would be a fun game to play, is to be able to see real transparency of what our score was based on the impact or the impulse that we made by sharing these cool concepts with our friends, families, and the people we know or the people we've come to know. And by doing that, what we decided to do over 14 months ago is develop a technology, enabling technology that not only would do it, but create an ecosystem to where the players that are ruling and driving the business can get rewarded for doing the things that they're doing already instinctively. And my thought process was very simple, Jim. It's this, is that we've all been participating in the biggest transition and the biggest movement that we'll ever see in our lifetime. But the question is, how many people are making money and capitalizing financially off of it? You see, creating value in the market, the more value you create, you will always get paid for the value you create. The reality of it is, though, if you create value without transparency, it will yield no return. However, if you create the same value and you actually have true transparency, then wealth is created. Transparency is the currency that we're talking about, and we're very excited to roll this enabling technology out to the world and really, you know, powered by the people, but reward the people that are doing it to where you have the ability to play in a lot bigger game that, you know, a lot of other markets and a lot of other venture capitals and high-level executives have seen over the last 5 or 6 years. And a lot of it is using the same strategy that Jim went over with you tonight. And so, you know, my purpose for being on the call is, number one, to learn from Jim, which did an awesome job. But number two is to invite you out to Dallas, Texas, the weekend of April 12th. And we're super excited about this weekend. I know that there's a lot of individuals that have a lot of anticipation on what we're getting ready to roll out and release. And, you know, the only way that we can really create the impact that we want to in the marketplace is by attracting the right people that see what we see and they believe what we believe. And that's what visionaries do, is they see what isn't as if it were. But what we want to do is really create an inner circle. And if you're on this call, I believe that you're part of the red carpet or the velvet rope that we've created, as we have invited just a handful of people over the last couple of months and shared with them a little bit of our vision, and that handful has grown to really where we're starting to create a buzz in the marketplace. However, the people that attend this event will be the first people to be able to engage in our system and our engaging in our enabling technology that we'll be releasing our beta version within weeks following the Playbook event. But those that are there will not only see it, once again, they will be a part of the release of it, and we'll ask them and invite them into the system where it will track the impact that they've been making not only on the market, but the impact that they can make on the global market. And it's amazing the power of one person and the ripple that they can create in the world just by sharing, you know, an idea, a concept, a product, and, you know, or a few kind words. And so what we want to do is invite you to the Playbook event. I can tell you that the last Playbook event was filled with a lot of fun, a lot of education. We had 2 of our strategic advisors there that I can tell you companies have paid literally tens of thousands of dollars just to come have them speak. One of them was John Carter, who Jim shared with you, that started the Mogul Company. He's been on the cover of Forbes magazine. And it's really neat to hear perspective of individuals that are out there doing it in the new economy, in the market. And then we also had Eitan Albaz, the dude that created Google AdSense, which we're all familiar, could probably be the most monumental revenue-generating company on the internet at the time that it was released, and now it's doing $40 billion. And the point of making the point of sharing with you them being at the event is they weren't in the event because they were paid or hired speakers. They actually came to the event because of the relationships we have with them, and because they understand the impact that you can make on the market, and, you know, the vision that we have for rolling out this enabling technology. And so what we want to do is invite you to be at this Playbook event, to learn more of the information that we're talking about, to gain some insight on some of these new strategies, but more importantly, you know, be able to use something to where you can actually be a part of creating that movement. So with that being said, look forward to seeing all of you at the Playbook event. I will state this, Jim, I just got news from some of our executive team that it looks like that we're getting ready to shut down ticket sales pretty soon. I think we're reaching maximum capacity. We're trying to get more rooms extended, but that event will be held at the oh, help me. It's going to be in Dallas, Texas, but it's going to be held, there you go, at the Intercontinental, you know, right off the Dallas Parkway. So make sure that you get your room guaranteed by calling tonight, first thing in the morning. I know there's a limited amount of rooms available. We only have this group rate held for just a certain period of time. So make sure you do that. And I can tell you the first 200 people that book the rooms, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to gamify it, make it a game. The first 200 people that reserve their rooms are going to get the ability to win some really cool prizes like an iPad, a Kindle Fire, some fun things like that. So, you know, we want to have a lot of fun. We want to educate, empower, and also we want to give you the ability to capitalize on what you've been doing anyway for the last 10 years and really understand the value that you've had in today's marketplace. You have been the game changer. The reality of it is most companies just haven't rewarded you for the impact that you've made with their companies. So if you can take a look at the slide in front of you, it kind of goes through the codes that expire. And, if you want to purchase your ticket to that event, just simply go to playbookevent.com. That is www.playbookevent.com to purchase your tickets if you haven't received them yet. And you can purchase those for a 3-pack of tickets. So we not only want you to come, we want you to bring your friends, your closest associates with you. And you can use the promo code Have Fun. Or the 5-pack is 50% off the original ticket price, and you can use the promo code GAMEON, GAMEON. So with that being said, I know we'll have a lot of information going out to each and every one of you, and I think that these calls are definitely, put in place to have a lot of impact to really give you an education on some of the transformational language, some of the transformational strategies that we're going to be utilizing to transcend the market. One of the things that we always talk about is doing what hasn't been done, and not, making the competition irrelevant. We don't want to go into an ocean and fight with everybody else in the market. Instead, we'd rather innovate and create. And so remember, let's have fun, let's connect with each other, let's play the game together, because the players truly do rule, and we are the innovators for this mobile movement. It's time for us to get paid off of it. And so you're going to have a lot of fun at this event. We're going to play some financial games, game, and learn the experience and of not only gamification, but more importantly, you have the ability to position yourself with the enabling technology that we will be releasing, and you will be a part of that release coming April 12th. And I can tell you, a mentor of mine told me the key to creating wealth is one thing. A lot of people believe it's education. A lot of people believe it's hard work. But think about it. How many hardworking, well-educated, quite frankly, broke people do we know today? The key to creating wealth is growth. Growth is what multiplies and magnifies your wealth, and I can tell you that we're getting ready to step into the biggest game that I've ever played in my business career over the last 20 years. And I can tell you that the bigger the game, the bigger the players that step up. And as we've been crisscrossing the country for the last 14 months, from Hollywood to Wall Street, it's amazing to see the reaction that people have, from the CTO of advertising.com to the guy that developed Google AdSense. Is they look at us and say, "You figured it out." And we can't wait to share with you what we figured out, because it includes you. You're the differentiator, and that's why you should be rewarded. So with that being said, Jim, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Always an awesome job. Love hearing you teach, educate. I know you have fun doing it. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to you. We definitely look forward to seeing all of you in Dallas, Texas, April 12th.
Thanks, Brian, and thank you, everybody, for hopping on here. We are super excited to connect with you guys. This obviously was about gamification. Stay tuned. We're going to be doing future presentations about mobile and social and taking you deeper into that. I've had a couple people request that I go back and let you write these promo codes again. So you can go to playbookevent.com and click on the link. Enter either one of these codes, Have Fun or Game On. There is no space in those words, so keep them together. And again, this is until the tickets are sold out. We did end up getting a bigger hotel room than the first hotel, which sold out that first day. So I would imagine these are going to last much longer. So don't wait, or you're going to be probably having somebody scalp you tickets. Okay. And again, for those of you who want to know about the hotel, it's at the Intercontinental Hotel in Dallas. If you call there, just mention the Playbook event, and that will give you a special room rate of $109 per night. And as Brian mentioned, we actually have a whole stack of prizes, from a Kindle Fire to an iPad to nanos to all kinds of stuff that we're going to give away for those of you guys who book early in the hotel, because we want to make sure that we're all there together. We've got some fun events planned, and we want you guys to become a part of what we think is going to be one of the most fun and exciting and passionate communities ever to hit the planet. So thank you so much for playing, everyone. Have an awesome night, and we'll look forward to connecting with you again. This is Jim Bunch and Brian Underwood and the whole team at the Playbook event saying thank you so much. God bless. We'll talk soon. Bye for now.